Ladies and gentlemen, you notice he does have his pants on this time, so I think we're making progress, right? Good. All right, well, the title of this session is Take Control Using Advocacy Tools. And in our opening, and even throughout the presentation we made with respect to what was accomplished in 2016 and 2017, we talked about these advocacy tools, and the video just did a really good job teeing them up. So the theme, amongst many, level the playing field, and a big part of that really is patient empowerment. We talked about that one seed, that one spark in your local and patient national member organization that's part of HAI. Your local member organization has incredible power to empower patients, and at the local level is really where a lot of the action takes place. And that's why we at HAI view our member organizations as really the key driver, the absolute key driver that can implement all of the plans, all of the activities, everything that's associated with a better future for patients and caregivers. So, in HAI, we're up here. We have accumulated all kinds of knowledge, skills, abilities, experiences, and we filter those down through our executive committee, our regional patient advocates, but really the action happens in all of our home member organizations. So what we're going to talk about today is, and we're going to be pretty brief, I think, Henrik, for once, perhaps, yeah.
Promised.
We're going to talk about our HAE toolbox, and there's these elements of it that we just want to make sure that our patient community is well aware of because they're available to you. And we'll start off, and I'll talk about the HAE Global Patient Registry. We teed that up a little bit earlier. I'll give you a little bit more detail on that. Also, our Global Access Program. This is something really exciting, very unique to Hereditary Angioedema International, and we're also very excited about our GAP program. And Henrik is going to talk about GAP. Henrik will also talk about HAI Connect. We, again, discussed that a little bit, but he's going to give you more of the details of what HAI Connect can do to help you manage your member organization. And we've heard in the videos and even in some of the talks that have been given today, we are open for business when it comes to providing free website hosting services to our member organizations. And it's something that we really recommend that you avail yourself to. We have great professionals that can help you make that happen, and the price is right because it's free. And then finally, we'll talk about HAE Day and all the elements to that. So next slide. The Global Patient Registry. How exciting is this? I'm not going to say if, when this is implemented, and it's in the process of being rolled out right now, this will be the first truly global rare disease patient registry, the first successful one. And it's a very unique and ambitious project. And what's really great about it, though, is it's not starting from scratch. We've noticed that Professor Ciccardi in Italy had developed a really good registry and accumulated a lot of very good experience and had some very savvy IT people working alongside of him. And that is going to be the basis for the global registry. So essentially, we're taking the elements of what was successful in Italy. It's been tested. It's put out some excellent data so far. It's a fairly large registry with a good number of patients, and we're going to roll that out as the global registry. And HAI has had a big part in everything that's happened with regard to the global registry. We have been an integral part of managing it, helping to manage it, helping to provide input on how it should roll out, where it should roll out. And so keep in mind that the patients have had a large voice in the development of the global HA registry. And the promise for this is really all about data. And those of us who are struggling on a day-to-day basis to get access to and reimbursement for medicines in our home countries, or trying to convince somebody that self-administration is really important, or any of the other types of things that we do in our tasks as patient advocates, the first question you get is, well, what kind of data can you show me? And a lot of times we have to end up providing what's called anecdotal data. It's more stuff like, well, I got, in my family, or I know some people who, and that's great, and there are times when that works really well. But the beauty of a well-designed registry is that it can systematically collect, and we're gonna do this on a global scale, highly accurate scientific data. And what's really going to be cool about this thing is it has a couple of different components. And the fundamental design of the way this is going to be run, which is different than other registries, and we have one in the US, which is a patient-filled out registry. It's been very successful. But the global registry has two pieces to it, which really lend to the validity of the information being collected. It starts out with the visit to a physician, and the physician then collects all different kinds of information, including blood tests and the like. So there's a specific protocol that then the physician's responsible for, and it takes some medical history and again, testing data and a few other things like that. And then it's up to the patient to then fill out information about the course of their HAE. And that's going to be done by a really very elegantly designed app that all of the patients who are participating in the registry will have in their possession. So you have, on the one hand, baseline data that the physician will collect. Then they will hand you an app, or you can download an app, and it's to be able to record your attacks and also how they were treated, and also some of the other comments you might have about how effective that treatment might be. And there'll also be, eventually, for those patients on prophylaxis, there'll also be ways to check in to sort of assess the effectiveness of that particular way of treating hereditary angioedema. So what are the benefits of a global registry? I think they're pretty obvious, but it's like anything else, and all of us have had in one way or another a basic statistics kind of a course. And we know intuitively that information, data, that's drawn from a large number, a large sample, is really a much more powerful set of information. And also, particularly in a disease state or a condition like HAE, if you have a larger data set, really smart data engineers and analysts that know what they're looking for can ping that database, and they are more likely to find insights, as they do data mining, insights into things that might not all be that obvious. But with a big data set, you can look at trends and get much better clues with regard to things that are going on in the disease state. And of course, the other piece of this, and you'll see this now as we look at all the HAE studies that are being published, it's really, and this is a trend in medicine as well, it's all about evidence-based data. Right? Everybody wants to, when you come up, if you look at those WAO guidelines that we've talked about, to level the playing field for treating HAE, and each one of the recommendations that they have in those guidelines, they talk about the level of evidence that supports the point. So evidence-based medicine is what you need to have when you publish a paper, and it's a big thing. So the cool thing about the registry, it will provide lots of evidence that can be used in papers. And what we really think is going to be great is that we will have evidence-based data, and we will push on the scientific board and with our physicians that they use this data to really think about standards of care for HAE patients, and we want to have a continuous improvement model where they're constantly looking for ways to improve the standard of care of HAE, and they'll have the information to be able to prove it. And of course, again, the concept of bigger is better is very much the case within a database, and as you have a larger set of data, the confidence in its validity statistically really grows, and it becomes something that others who review the information will be a lot more comfortable with. Now, here's some things that are going on in the space that I think we all have to be aware of. There aren't unlimited budgets out there for healthcare, and it doesn't matter where we are. It doesn't matter what country you are. There are, the whole notion of scarcity is very much involved when we're talking about medication. And so what a payer whether that payer is a governmental entity or that payer is a private insurance entity. One of the things that they really want to know is if I'm spending money for this rare disease and I'm purchasing this medicine on behalf of the patient, what I want to know, or what that entity wants to know, is they want to see what improvements, what am I getting for my investment? And that's what all of the insurers, all the health agencies are really looking for. So to the extent that we have data that shows that these treatments are highly effective and they change a person's life, they increase their ability to lead a normal life, they show dramatic increases in quality of life, those are the kinds of things that lead to positive reimbursement decisions. We've seen this time and time again. Well, one of the great things about this large data set in the global registry, we'll be able to hit that database and come up with great data that really justifies these medicines to show that in the life of this human being, they went from having a horrific time with high attack rate, with morbidity problems, meaning they can't work, they miss a lot of work, they have other problems, they can't take care of their family. You put them on the appropriate medicine, all that goes away. That has a high value, and these are the kinds of things that on a systematic basis the global registry is going to be able to provide, and it's going to help all of us. The last thing I'll say with respect to the registry, that data set also is going to provide a very early means for our physicians to detect any unexpected side effects or adverse events from medicines. Now, fortunately, thank God, we've had what, about four and a half decades of experience with C1 inhibitor. We haven't seen what doctors call it a seroconversion, meaning we haven't seen any kinds of infections because of the pharmacovigilance with these medicines. I mean, they're highly safe, and the same thing with the other generations of medicines that have come out. We found, thank goodness, that our HA medicines are very, very safe, and we don't see big problems. And I firmly believe that that's going to continue in the future. However, we have to also remain vigilant, and we also have to be ready to have the information in the event something happened that we could identify it quickly and then take the appropriate action to make sure it doesn't become a problem. So the registry will also be able to provide early detection of unexpected side effects or other adverse events. So we're very excited. As I said before, HAEI has had a very key role in the registry. Now, we have formed, and the doctors have formed, a separate global registry foundation. So it's a separate entity, but HAI does have seats on the board, and we also, on the board of directors of the actual foundation, and we also have seats on the scientific board. So that is wonderful because that makes sure that there's a patient voice in all of the governance and in all of the direction and in all of the analysis and all of the research that goes in the global registry. The last thing I'll say about that, and I'm going to turn it over to Henrik to talk about the other tools, is ask your physicians about it. We're going to try to roll this thing out worldwide. It's going to be global. And the interest that the physicians globally have is quite remarkable. We were just at a meeting in Bucharest, Romania, where, Henrik, what was it, about 80 doctors? Was there more?
Around the number, yeah.
Yeah, from all around the world, highly enthusiastic about it. And we did the presentations and showed how this thing is going to work. So we expect a very, very large physician interest, and then we will roll out the patient side of it and remind you of when this is available. Because one of the things that we've also done as HA patients, and I talked about this on the clinical trial side, this is actually kind of like a clinical trial if you think about it. So your participation in the global registry will help you, it'll help your children, and probably help their children as well. So I'll turn it over to Henrik now for the next segment here.
The next second, you said, or?
Segment.
I was trying to win all of us an early coffee break, but I mean, thank you, Tony. Yeah, so when you start hearing about the Global Patient Registry, make sure that you also sign up for that. Help yourself getting access to data about your treatments, about your attack patterns and how the medicine works for you. This is the best way both to see backwards but also look forward and find the best solutions for you as individual patients. Before I head into the other thing, I am deeply ashamed of myself. I have over long times.
He's ashamed of himself that he came with pants this time. That's really what he's really trying to say.
I've learned that it's always best to be honest and say when you did make a mistake, and I made the biggest one today. I forgot to introduce you to one of the important HAEI executive team members. So I will do that before we head into the rest, and I hope she will forgive me. And of course it is from the United Kingdom, Rachel Annals, sitting right there. But Rachel was actually doing the timing when we had the candidate presentations. So she was the bossy one with the timer here, and she was hiding behind that wall, and I guess that's why I forgot it. But I'm so sorry, Rachel, and you are definitely my top 10 of the of the 10 members. Thank you. Good. So a program that I would like to talk a little bit about that is near and dear to us at HAI is our Global Access Program. This is maybe not so interesting for the countries that have access to medication, but for a lot of countries around the world where there's currently nothing registered or available, this could be a way to gain access to medication. When we started the idea about the Global Access Program, we were actually hoping that we could convince pharma companies to also come up with free drugs so that we could help in those countries simply to get access. But we're also realistically enough looking at it this way and saying, well, there is, and we know that from many rare diseases, that there is in all countries, there is a pot of money to help. And maybe we are not starting out with prophylactic treatments around the world, but we are starting out with life-saving treatments. And that's the aim of the Global Access Program. It's a regulatory, ethically approved mechanism in which we distribute HAE medication to countries that have no access to drugs. And currently the drug that is available in the Global Access Program is one of the C1 inhibitors, and it's a recombinant C1 inhibitor, Ruconest, from farming that is in the Global Access Program. We are talking with all the pharma companies to have other drugs also becoming available through the Global Access Program. And we hope that one day we'll be able to come up with a compassionate use program, the free drug program for countries where there are absolutely no means to pay for medication. We initiated this program back in 2015, and it really hit off late 2015 into 2016. And in 2017, we actually relaunched the program with a new partner in Inceptua Medicines Access, and that has made dramatically changes to the number of requests that we get through the Global Access Program now. It's we are looking at many specific countries right now. We are looking, amongst others, into China, and as you can imagine, China is one of the places where you have a huge population, and alone in Beijing, where we recently had a patient-physician conference, one of the doctors there, well, she alone treats like 400 or 500 patients with HAE. So there's a huge concentration of patients in China. We will see that in India as well. We see it in many different places. So we are pushing the Global Access Program out there together with our regional patient advocates, together with our executive committee members, and one day we will have a lot of people who also benefit from the Global Access Program. We focus, as I said, on Asia as well, but Eastern and Southeastern Europe also, as well as, of course, our Latin American friends. So that's where we're going to put our focus for the Global Access Program as we go forward. And I just want to mention before we step into the next thing that we have a little stand out here from HAI with the Global Access Program. There are some flyers on there that tells you about the Global Access Program. It also tells you the steps you need to go through if you want to apply for medication through the GAP program. Nothing that patients can do, unfortunately. That's the way it's regulated still, and it's probably remaining that way, that we need a doctor to get some medication. But get hold of your doctors, bring a couple of the flyers with you. They are also in your conference bags, and talk to your doctor about how to get access to HAE medication through the HAEI Global Access Program. Good. The next thing I'm going to talk about is HAI Connect. And HAI Connect is something that we came up with because we had a couple of situations where we would like both us from HAI, but also our member organizations to be able to communicate fast to members. At the same time, we saw that in many of the countries, the membership database actually was an Excel spreadsheet or maybe a piece of paper that was hidden in the drawer. And at the same time, we knew that we were facing a new situation in, at least for the European countries, with the European General Data Protection Program coming up. And we said to ourselves, what can we do to help both ourselves being better in communication with or helping our member organization being better in communication directly with members, and how can we help our member organizations to hold membership data and still be EU GDPR compliant. We expect the European data compliance regulations to be probably amongst the toughest in the world. And we therefore believe that when we are living up to that level of protection, then we should be able to run a membership database globally as well. So HAI Connect is not connected to the global registry in any way. This is a free online membership database for our member organization, a cloud-based solution where you don't need to have Excel sheets on computers that can be stolen or papers in the drawers that can be stolen. It's a system where we that would help you to grow your membership database and to build your membership database. It also allows you with a built-in editor like the ones you see on MailChimp and a lot of the other mailing programs. HAI Connect also allows you to send out newsletters directly, and they will of course come out with your own country's look and feel, and it's actually a really, really, really good tool. We're already implementing it in a lot of countries, and of course, especially the European countries right now are a little bit under pressure because May 25th is the day when the new General Data Protection Law goes into place. So if you are a European member organization and you haven't thought about HAI Connect, I would strongly recommend that you get in touch with us and talk to us about it, because we can maybe not make it until the 25th, but we can start immediately and help you get going on a compliant database. For your members, it will also mean that they can appoint specific interests and get information whenever you guys are sending out information of specific interest areas. As a good example is that some members may say, I would be interested in participating in a clinical trial at some point if something came up. And then if you as a member organization is aware of clinical trials, then you can do a search in your member database and say, we are having a clinical trial here. It's for everybody between 18 and 40, and they need to have HAE type 1 or type 2, or they need to be HAE normalcy 1 inhibitor or whatever. And you can pinpoint in your database, and they will only send out to those people who have said, I'm interested in hearing about it. So it's a great way for you to communicate targeted to your members. And as I said, you can filter your data and your emails. You can send mails directly to one member, or you can send it to a segment of members. That's when we started searching for special interests. Or I want to send an email to all the male members of my organization. I want to send email to everybody between 12 and 25 for a youngsters session or whatever we were going to plan. And this is something you can do with HAI Connect. And as we said, it's wrapped up with your own logo and header look and feel from each of our member countries. You can communicate instantly. And as all of you know, we had a situation a little while ago in the autumn last year where we had some shortage on medication. And in those countries that were running with HAI Connect, we could go in and say, we know there's a shortage coming up on this specific medication. And we could send out an email to everybody who we knew was using that medication so that they could get in touch with their physician and make a plan in case this happened. It's good for that. It's good for other things. It could be if there's a production error going on or something else going on that will have affecting your medications. We can, your member organizations can send out information to you directly. We talked about clinical trials. And another thing that's so important with HAE as an autosomal dominant disorder is, of course, being hereditary. We want to make sure that we encourage family testing. If a family member has HAE, it's super important that we get the other family members tested as well and take away the risk here. And that's something that you can also support and motivate your members for through HAI Connect. HAI Connect supports a lot of languages. The countries that are currently using it, they have all their own languages in there. The only thing we ask from you, we give this to you for free. As I said, it's a Google Cloud-based system. It has all the technical security levels that you can imagine. I'll come back to those in a second. But the only thing we ask from you is to help us with a little bit of translation. So there's some fields on the database and a few basic standard emails, and then you're up and running. So as I said, data security is really our top priority. When we participated in the EU GDPR program or educational program, it was interesting because HAI was a very, very small organization. We were there with people from Facebook, from Google, from the big banks, all of the big organizations, big companies who hold data on persons, and how should they handle personal data as we move forward. It's something that it may sound a little bit like an overkill, but trust me, the rules are very strict, and the EU are out there really looking after who will be compliant and who is not. So have a look at HAI Connect. As I said, security top priority, encrypted data communication for everything we do. We have two-factor login so that if you're logging in from a computer, you can use a username and a password, but it won't bring you anywhere until you receive a confirmation code for your login on your cell phone. Members will not log into the database. Members can request a link to see their profile and to update their profile. That way we don't have misuse and break-in to secure data. And these links are time limited, and it's you as an administrator in the individual country who decides how long time they should be alive for. So it's all about security. It's all about building your member organizations out there. It's all about giving you a tool not only to build and grow your members, but also to communicate with your members. So that's, as we said earlier, compliant with the EU General Data Protection Regulation at the same time. Super exciting tool. It's a fast database, and I'm sure for those of you who are interested in having a look at it, it'll be a real killer. So reach out to your regional patient advocate or reach out to either Tony or myself or anybody from the executive committee if you're interested in learning more about this fantastic database that will grow our community globally. We also, and a lot of you already have noticed that we help our member organizations to host websites. Is that a big thing? Is that not a big thing? Well, it may not be a big thing, but it's a super helpful thing. And we have, I think it's 16 or 18 countries already now being hosted from HAI. And we just had a few examples here. We have the website of Hungary that is hosted with HAI. We have the website from Greece. But I could keep going. Poland was mentioned earlier as well. And I think there's one more, yeah, the Australasian website as well. But we keep adding new websites for our countries, and consider this one. Again, it's a tool we want to give you free of charge. It's linked up with HAI, so a lot of the basic information about HAE you will be able to take directly from the HAI website. It will also help you, as you can see, they have a little bit of a similarity in the look, so we kind of built on this recognition factor. When people search the internet, it doesn't really matter if they end up in Poland or on HAI or in Serbia or wherever in one of the countries using those websites, because there is a certain touch and feel that is similar, and they feel, well, we are at home with HAE here. We can, of course, this website will be in your own language, and it will be available to you within very short time. I mean, after you've requested it, because it's all built from a template, so the standard functionality will be there, and you will be taught a very easy program to update and maintain the website yourself. So that's another option. And then the final thing that I want to talk about, and what I can already now promise you, is that you're going to get a bit early out to the coffee break. It's HAE Day. It's not the HAE Day itself, but the HAEday.org website. And why do we want to talk about that? Yeah, because we just had HAE Day, as you well know. And if you go into the HAEday.org website, there's a lot of tools for you there. It will help you how to engage with media, how do we write press releases, how do we talk to journalists, a lot of information that will help you for that. It also comes up with a number of ideas for events that you could arrange around HAE Day or at any time during the year to raise awareness, and how you can get involved, how you can work with social media. There is a list of frequently asked questions, talking points, videos, pictures, and much, much, much more. So these are just some of the things that we try to package for you and continue to improve every day to make sure that you have some great tools out there in your organizations to work with patient advocacy, help your patients, and raise awareness for HAE. Tony, do you want to add?
No, I mean, I think all these tools are great, and these are things that show that in HAI it's not about talk, it's about action, and we're trying to make sure that we level the playing field by providing our member organizations with the tools that they need to be successful, and back it up with technical support and any kind of assistance necessary to make things work. And of course, HAE Day is really important, and I think that, you know, if you take a look on the website and look at the number of steps that people have taken,
it's
how many million steps?
Yeah. I think I looked at it yesterday. We are way above 33 million steps this year during the global walk, and I think that's really, really, really amazing. So for everybody who's been out there walking,
but I'll tell you, the HAE Day toolbox really is extremely valuable for those of us who don't necessarily deal with the press every day, might not necessarily know how to work social media. Really and truly, I would say that you could really learn a lot by going to that toolbox and taking a look at some of the materials there. I think it's really, really valuable, and I know I've learned some things, and it's like anything else. Once you think you really know something, when you go and look at somebody else's perspective, you realize, well, you know, maybe there's some additional ideas that I could have there, and particularly with respect to engaging the media, that can always be a very dicey situation. So you always want to make sure that you have the best guidance available to you when you do that.
yeah, perfect. So with that said, we will head into the coffee break now. Coffee is right out here, and we were supposed to be out there in 15 minutes, but let's keep the timing as it is. Spend a little bit time with our exhibitors out there, and we start in here again at 16:45 or 4:45 p.m., where we then talk about the...
This is the last presentation that Henrik and I will be making today. Yeah! Exit stage right.
In fact, it's the last presentation we make at this conference, isn't it?
That's even more to applaud
Together,
about.
yeah.
I think everybody's getting sick of seeing us up here these days.
Yeah.
Be that as it may. Henrik, you have some housekeeping details?
I certainly do, yeah, I certainly do. So, when we entered this room after the coffee break, I hope that all of you had your badges scanned. Are there anybody in here who didn't get a badge scanned? Yeah? If you didn't get your badge scanned, it's extremely important that when you walk out from this session here, make sure you get scanned at the doors, because that will be the last opportunity for being scanned today. Okay? Yes?
Every break for the coffee.
So,
Every time?
sorry?
No, it's only now.
No,
Only now
On the way out, you need to scan.
Only this moment, no after.
And tomorrow again. Yeah. Also with this one here, we want to make sure that you get some time to relax before we head into our welcome reception tonight. Excuse me. Which is on the mezzanine level, so one level up where there was lunch today as well. Tonight we have some Austrian theme in the more classical part, and as you probably know, Vienna, that's exactly what Vienna is known for. So I hope you will enjoy this Austrian themed welcome reception on the first floor on the M1 level tonight. We start up there at 7:30. There will be type of buffet with small plates and Austrian dishes on it, and there will be some seating. You don't have to sit down. It's not a dinner as such. It's more like a light meal, and you can take different dishes and try. So we hope you're going to have a good time there. The other thing is, and that is really important, we know that with HAE friends, you had the 2 red drinks coupons. Make sure you bring them up there. We know that after a long conference day, you tend to be a little thirsty. So make sure you bring both of the tickets. And after those are used, there will be a bar where you can buy soft drinks, beer, and wine as well. Yeah. And
It is the future for all of us as HAE advocates. They're really having a great time, and they're engaged. There was a couple of talks that seem to really get these kids moving along, and at the end of the conference, we'll be hearing a lot more from HAE youth, and we'll actually be seeing some of the things that they're putting together as they've gathered together and have been working together throughout the conference. So just want to let you know that HAE youth is engaged, and again, they're a big part of HAI. They're our future, and they're just what a wonderful, engaged, and energetic group of kids. So really excited about seeing what they come up with for us at the end of the conference.
Absolutely. And we have a little technical hiccup here with our monitor, but
Technical issues.
thank God you can do it anyway, Tony.
Yeah. Oh, we can't see it here?
We will see it in a few.
I might. Oh, well, see, that's the whole thing. Now I got to look around and turn around and look at my slides here, which is verboten. You never want to do that. Anytime you teach anybody how to make a presentation, you say, don't do this and read the slides. So guess what I'm going to do, ladies and gentlemen?
We're going to read the slides.
Yeah. Although, can we vamp Laura while you get this fixed? Because I could maybe do a hula dance or something like that. That would be disgusting, but
Yeah. I can bring my short pants. Or...
Yeah, Henrik has his short pants. He can always roll them up, and we could have a, or I can go back and claim that I really was abducted by aliens and had my mind scrambled. But be that as it may. All right. Well, we'll go ahead and get started anyway.
He actually was. I still believe.
So, we're going to be again mercifully brief and let you out here early. We're going to try to canter through this survey really quickly. I know the last couple of sessions have been, moderately boring, and Henrik and I can do boring really well. Let me tell you, we know that from a lot of conferences we've been at. But I think what we really did want to do, and what we've done at all of our global conferences, is we have had a global assessment. And the global assessment involves us going out to our member organizations and asking them some fundamental questions for us to get an idea of what is the state globally of HAE treatment. Now, the survey we did this time, it was a 13-question survey, and it was sent out to all member organizations. And we have 63 member organizations. Here's what's interesting, and I want to mention this up front so we have a context for the data that you're going to see. Next slide, I think, Henrik?
Yeah, that I can do.
Oh, good. Yeah, so out of the 63 member organizations at Hereditary Angioedema International, we had 42 member organizations completed. It was an online survey, and as I mentioned before, addressed a variety of issues really relating to HAE management in the respective countries. So when we think about the data we have here, I think we have to also probably consider the fact that it may be weighted to the more positive side of things. Why is that? I think that the organizations, 27 of them that didn't respond, are probably those that may not be as advanced. And these are places where we're working very hard to make HAE organizations a reality and help them build what we think they can build. But we only got 42 responses, out of 63, and I didn't do the math right, did I?
No, but you were close enough.
Yeah, that's close enough. That's close enough for government work, as we used to say. So just keep that in mind, but I do think that the data we do have, though, is valid, and it does give us a very good impression about what's going on.
And Tony, if I may add,
Yeah.
as you said, this might bring a picture that is a little bit more positive in some places than what we actually would expect out there, but I think it also shows that there has been made progress over the last couple of years.
Oh, yeah, and you will see that as we go through the survey, that there really has been some good progress made. So we got those 42 organizations. When you look at what we call the epidemiological statistics, big word for how many people in a country probably have HAE, usually we look at the statistics that you see in the medical literature. It says that HAE patients, the population of those patients is anywhere between 1 in 30,000 and 1 in 50,000. Some of the stuff that we've been looking at lately, like some out of Denmark, Israel, the Netherlands, some other countries, we're actually starting to see it in some cases where there seems to be good diagnosis, that number comes closer down to like 1 in 30,000. So if you run those numbers very quickly, you can kind of do the division and take your population in your country divided by 30,000, and you pretty much come up with the target population for hereditary angioedema. So we did that for the 42 countries that responded to our survey, and it's a pretty good base there, because it was about 15,000 patients that were covered in this survey. But remember the methodology. The assumption here, and I think it's a valid one, is the head of the patient organization really has his or her finger on the pulse of what's going on in the country. And so they're the ones that did the sum total, and they're the ones that responded to the survey on behalf of the patients in their country.
Absolutely. And while we're going to work with more of the details from the survey, what we're going to show here and now is just a summary and some of the high-level outcomes there. So, need for advocacy. I mean, we know that already. That's not a big surprise. But it was interesting to see that the challenges identified by our member organizations really still are the same. So it's all about access, and especially also reimbursement to modern HAE medication. And it's also the impact on everyday life, and also the impact on education, on work, on social life. These are the things, together with the lack of awareness in the countries, that are the most significant challenges identified by our member organizations.
So as we go through these numbers, let's hark back to our elementary school fractions and percentages, because you'll need to kind of wrap your arms around those, because these are these numbers that we're going to provide really are very much in terms of fractions and percentages, but they do tell a very interesting story. So when it comes to need for advocacy, think about this. Of the 42 countries that responded, 1/3 of them, 1/3 of that number, reported that less than half of the patients in their country have access to modern medicine. All right? So we got some work to do, don't we? Then in 1/4 of those countries, so you take your 42, you said 1/4 of them, 25%, reported that patients in their country, only 10% of them have access to modern medication. And then tragically, and this is really what we're all about, remember our concept, level the playing field, as what we do as advocates. Unfortunately, 5 countries reported that patients in their country have no access to modern HAE countries in the past. And I'm looking at Professor Yamamoto here. It has actually been in some guidelines as an acute attack therapy, tranexamic acid as an acute attack therapy. We tried it many years ago, it didn't work, but okay, some things work for some people and it doesn't work for others. But here's the data that I just want to share with you on tranexamic acid and why it should not be used as an acute attack basis. There's a clinical trial that basically proved that it doesn't work. If you look at the Firazyr trial that was done in Europe, the comparator medicine was tranexamic acid against Firazyr. So, and of course that proved that there was no comparison. That was a double-blind, placebo-controlled study where they were running the statistics on patients who took tranexamic acid as opposed to those who took Firazyr, and there was really no comparison. And then if you think about that for a second, so here we had tranexamic acid acute, didn't work, Firazyr worked, Firazyr gets approved. In the US, however, the regulators, the Food and Drug Administration said, no, we don't want you to use tranexamic acid, we don't like it for whatever reason, when regulators speak, sometimes we listen. And so they used saline solution instead. So what happened in that trial though? Very interesting. So in the US trial, saline solution, Firazyr. On the first trial, saline solution worked enough that that trial did not result in an approval. They had to do another trial. So we would argue that in some cases, when it comes to acute attack therapy, saline or salt water is more effective than tranexamic acid. So just keep that in mind as you go forward. Tranexamic acid is used successfully for prophylaxis. That's a whole different mechanism. But I just wanted to make the point that I think the science is pretty definitive that for acute attack therapies is probably not effective.
That is correct. So the other thing, and we talked about that earlier today as well, what's so near and dear for us is we want to make sure that our countries get at least what's in the guidelines. And we want to be compliant to the guidelines that are out there. We are improving, but we still have challenges. So 9 of the countries reported that almost all patients have 2 doses of acute HAE therapy available for on-demand use. That's only 9 out of 42. And if you remember from the WHO guideline we talked about this morning, we said that all patients should have at least 2 treatments available to treat 2 attacks at all times. This is currently only in 9 countries the case. 18 of the countries reported that more than 70% of the patients have 2 doses of acute HAE therapy available for on-demand use. So it's better, but we
ourselves and our children and the future generations of people who suffer from HAE, I pose to you a very fundamental question. Now that we have really effective medicines that prevent HAE attacks, and we have one that was recently approved, we have another one that we believe that the US FDA is going to approve shortly. If you look at the data that's been published on these treatments, we're looking at 95% to 96% reduction in attacks, and that's in clinical trials. And usually in clinical trials, the rules are very severe. So if somebody thinks they might have an attack, it goes down as an attack. Even later on, it doesn't indicate that it is. So if under the clinical trial controlled circumstances, they're showing that level of success, that kind of takes HAE treatment into another realm. So the question that I have now, and that I think we need to start thinking about and pushing for as advocates, and you always have to start someplace, is so why would it be then that we as functioning, sentient human beings who all we want to do is take care of our family, go to work, do a great job, do all the things that human beings do to be successful in their lives and take care of their families, the question is then, why do we have to get sick before we get treated? And that gets into the whole issue of prophylaxis. So let's take a look to see what our survey indicated where we are at this current time. In 16 of the countries, prophylactic therapy with one of the modern medicines is not available, just not available. So if there's prophylaxis going on in those 16 countries, it's usually happening with anabolic steroids or maybe even tranexamic acid. In 36 of the 42 countries, less than 20% of the patients are on prophylactic therapy with one of the modern medicines. Now, you move a mountain, as we know as patient advocates in our own home organizations and all the things we've done, you move that mountain with a shovel, one shovelful at a time. And I always talk about this little third results mean. So, as you can see on the continuum there, 0, no impact, and 5, severe negative impact. What we did was we did a little bit of mathematical calculations and came up with a composite score. And as you can see, in the 42 countries, we still have a way to go, ladies and gentlemen, because the composite average score in terms of severity was 4.33. Think about that for a second.
And there's a lot of interesting things you can read out of this, Tony, because as you mentioned before, as it is in many places right now and for many patients, you have to be sick before you get a treatment. And that is what this number is clearly also indicating here. So it is a burden for HAE patients and for the caregivers to have HAE, and we still see that here. It impacts the everyday life.
And that's a really good point, Henrik, and that brings up something else that you were involved in a study that was done several years ago in some of the countries in Europe. And this is the thing that I didn't even realize myself that was in play, and that is when you're having attacks, okay, you can treat them, and okay, I'm not going to die, or I'm not going to maybe be out of work for 3 days, but you're still getting sick. And so I can disclose here that I was in one of the clinical trials, and obviously as a patient advocate, my patient community in the U.S. looks at me and says, hey, dude, what about you, Okay, so I'll participate, and I did. And it was very interesting because all of the trials are double-blind, placebo-controlled trials. And I was in this trial, and I was on the placebo end for like 4.5 months, I think it was. And so not only did you have to give yourself, and Tad knows this very well, not only give yourself the shots that the trial requires, which were in the first phase, I found out salt water, but then you'd have attacks and you'd have to give yourself the rescue treatment. And it was really interesting. When I reflected on it later, I realized that, I didn't know this, but it was amazing. I could see that the scores that I was giving on the quality of life index and the work productivity and even, the Hamilton kind of psychological state index and so forth and so on, they were fairly low. And I realized that once I went on the drug arm and, got the benefit of that all of a sudden they went real high. So the point that I'm making, and a study that Henrik got involved in a couple of years back showed this very elegantly, that HAE's effect is pretty profound, even psychologically. Because if you're getting sick, you can get the treatment. It's better than not having the treatment, obviously. But the residual effect of that, the fear of when your next attack may be, and the fact that if you get your attack while you happen to be asleep, or in other situations where you don't follow the WAO guidelines and don't have the medicine on board with you to administer, it can really cause problems. So that's the other part of the argument, that as we work as patient advocates, we've got to start asking ourselves, why shouldn't we be able to prevent HAE attacks?
Absolutely. And similar to that one, we also asked our member organizations on a scale from 0 to 5, to what extent does HAE limit patients in your country from fulfilling their life's potential in school, at work, and in social life? And where do you think that we are on a scale from 0 to 5 when it comes to limitations? Any good guess? 4? If you're right, I owe you a beer. If you're wrong, you owe me one, yeah?
Got some optimistic people here.
Yeah, there's a lot of people. No, but you're absolutely right. We are at 395. Beautiful. I owe you a beer. But that's also significant. And this really demonstrates, again, this is the whole anxiety thing. It is, but also the physical thing of simply not being able to go through exams and educations. And we saw the numbers from a US study back in 10. Yeah. And again, these numbers were repeated in the European Burden of Illness study that Tony referred to earlier. We still have a way to go to change the mindset of patients and to get to a point where we say, we are not waiting for the disaster to happen. We need to prevent attacks from happening in the future and get anxiety away and get our next generations into a mode where this will have absolutely no impact on the education they choose, the work they choose, and the social life they want to live, and especially give them the freedom of traveling as well.
Well, if you recall from the opening discussion we had, we talked a lot about awareness and education as being a fundamental principle and really part of the business model of HAI and our member organizations. So we asked about that, and I think this is actually a good point here that almost 70% of the countries responding rated the physicians who treat HAE patients. Now, these are probably more towards the experienced expert side of the house, but 70% said that the knowledge that the physician had was good to excellent. So that's progress right there. However, here's the other side. In a lot of places, the emergency room is like the first line treatment for many patients. And we all, I'm sure, have stories about, I think, what do they call it in the UK? Accident and emergency, A&E. In the US, we call it the emergency room. I don't know what it's called in other countries, but this is really telling, and this is really scary in a lot of ways, that 64% of the countries rated emergency room physicians' HAE knowledge as poor or very poor. And that's pretty scary because they're the face, they're the ones that you present, they're the ones that can make a big difference in your treatment. And we all know the nightmarish stories. And I think that in many of our countries, trying to train emergency room doctors is a big, big thing. And I think you'll be hearing more about HAI programs that will provide in a toolkit that'll be able to allow our patient community to have the documentation to be able to present to the emergency room to try to get that number up as we go forward. And this is also very interesting too, because if you don't go to the emergency room when you're having an attack, a lot of times the first place you'll go when you're swelling is to your regular average family physician, your family doctor. And this is also a bit troubling, and again shows the need for us to take control of educating the healthcare community and continue our awareness activities, because a huge percentage, almost 80%, 76% of the countries rated the average physician, the family physician, sort of the general practitioner, rated their HA knowledge poor or very poor. So these fundamental elements of HA advocacy that are part of our business model and the business model that we would like to see our member organization has, we have some work to do, Henrik.
No, we absolutely do. But I think one thing that's also important when you have HAE, and that's again the whole theme for the conference here, take control of HAE. We should do it, not only put it on the shoulders of, does that mean when I put the next?
Yeah, go to the next slide, we're done. But here's the thing, and then just the last take-home message, ladies and gentlemen, is that what we can stand up here, our executive committee, the wonderful people who also ran for office that we have as part of the resolution that was passed. We're going to have an advisory council, so we'll have lots of participation in what's going on. We can tell you that we take this global assessment very seriously, and we will continue to amend our business model and our focus to make sure that when we get together, it'll be what, 2020? When we get together in 2020, these numbers are going to look a lot better. So
Exactly.
Have a great evening, and where are we going?
Yeah, no, we're just going to, quick reminder for those who didn't get it on the way in, make sure you get scanned on the way out. Have a great evening. Upstairs, 7:30. There's a little bit time to relax now. Thank you so much for your attention today, and see you later.
There's something in the way she moves, or looks my way, or calls my name.